So Meta is betting billions, literally billions of dollars, that augmented reality glasses are the next big thing. The future of computing, right? But here's the thing. What if that future is hurtling towards the exact same cliff as one of the most famous failures in tech history? Let's get into why it feels like we've seen this movie before.
Now, when I say that, it's not coming from some tech hater or a Luddite. It's not about the technology itself. It's something way, way deeper. It's about a piece of tech that, at its core, just violates a fundamental human instinct, our need to actually connect with each other face to face, and our gut resistance to being constantly intruded upon.
And that right there is the huge conflict we're going to dig into. You've got Meta's massive, world-changing ambition on one side, and on the other, you've got the ghost of the Google Glass disaster. I mean, all the warning signs are blinking bright red that Meta is walking down the exact same doomed path. Okay, so to really get why this all feels like déjà vu, we have to start with a little history lesson. Let's talk about the cautionary tale of Google Glass. Remember Google Glass? Back in 2013, it launched with this massive hype. It was going to be the next iPhone, a total revolution in how we see and interact with the world. But then, just 2 years later, poof. The consumer version was dead, gone, shelved by Google. So what on earth happened? Here's the kicker. The downfall of Google Glass wasn't really because the tech was bad. It was because it completely ignored human nature. First, the price was a wild $1,500 for something with no clear value. It was physically uncomfortable to wear, it created this huge social creep factor, and ultimately it was a solution desperately looking for a problem. It had no killer app. You know, the social pushback was so powerful, so immediate, that it actually created its own insult for people who wore them. This wasn't just the product failing to sell, it was a full-blown cultural rejection. People just felt weird, spied on, and totally disconnected from anyone wearing them. And this is so important to understand. The whole Google Glass thing wasn't some one-off mistake. It points to a much, much deeper issue that tech companies, in their rush for the next big thing, just keep on ignoring. It's the human instinct problem. We can actually break this down into 3 core barriers. And these aren't just little software bugs you can fix with an update. They are hardwired right into our biology and our psychology. Let's take a look at each one. Right, first up, the purely physical problem. It turns out that adding just 30 to 40 grams to a headset, we're talking about the weight of just a few coins, dramatically cuts down how long you can comfortably wear it. Our faces and necks, they just aren't built to carry extra weight all day, and it leads to strain, fatigue, and even cybersickness. Then you've got the social cost, and this is a big one. So much of how we communicate isn't with words, it's eye contact. It's those tiny little micro-expressions. That's how we build trust. That's how we understand each other. The second you put a piece of tech on your face, you block those signals, you become harder to read, and people just get less comfortable around you. And finally, we get to maybe the deepest barrier of all, our own psychology. We have a survival instinct to be wary of being watched. An always-on camera strapped to someone's face triggers that instinct constantly, not just for the person wearing it, but for every single person they talk to. It just feels intrusive. Okay, so to really grasp the huge mountain these devices have to climb, there's this fantastic concept from product design that explains it perfectly, the difference between a push product and a pull product. First, let's talk about what's called a pull product. This is something that solves a real, existing problem that you already feel. The iPhone is the perfect example. People were desperate for a better phone, a better music player, and a real internet device in their pocket. Apple didn't have to convince anyone. We were already pulling it into our lives. Now, on the flip side, you have a push product. This is when a company creates some tech and then spends a fortune on marketing to convince you that you have a problem you never even knew you had. Think Google Glass, or even the Segway. It's a cool piece of technology that's just looking for a purpose. And when you put them side by side, the difference is it's night and day. Pull products are all about the user. They're low friction, they just fit into your life. Push products are all about the company. They're high friction. They demand you change your life to fit the tech. And history is crystal clear. Successes are pulled, failures are pushed. So here's the million-dollar question you have to ask yourself. Would you willingly, happily, pull a device onto your face for 8 hours a day, every single day, if nobody else was doing it? If your honest answer is no, well, then it's a push product. And that is a very, very bad sign. All right, so keeping that whole push versus pull idea in our heads, let's take a look at how Meta and, yeah, even Apple seem to be falling into the very same traps.
Meta is basically repeating history by making 4 huge mistakes. They're assuming that if they build cool tech, our behavior will just magically change to fit it. They're ignoring that our phones already do almost everything AR glasses promise, but way more easily. They're completely underestimating the social friction. And most importantly, they're confusing the fact that they can build it with the idea that people will actually want it.
But wait, I know what you're thinking. What about the Apple Vision Pro? Isn't that a huge success? Well, let's get a reality check. The tech is absolutely incredible, no doubt about it. It feels like magic. But for a lot of the early adopters, that magic wears off and that very expensive device ends up sitting in a closet. And why is that? Well, the reasons should sound pretty familiar by now. Reports are showing that demand has totally collapsed after the initial hype because, well, it's uncomfortable to wear for a long time, it feels isolating, kind of antisocial, and for most things, your phone or your laptop is still just plain better and easier. If Apple can't crack this nut, what hope does Meta really have? Okay, so this all sounds pretty pessimistic, right? But this does not mean AR itself is doomed. It just means that putting bulky glasses on our faces is probably the wrong way to go about it. So what could a successful AR future actually look like? So what could work? Well, here are 3 ideas that actually work with our human instincts, instead of fighting against them. First, environmental AR, where information is just projected onto the world around us. Second, truly minimal wearables, where the tech literally disappears, maybe like a contact lens. And third, just using the powerful devices we already love and carry, our phones, our watches, our earbuds, to deliver AR only when we need it.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. The question isn't if AR is coming, it's how. Is it going to be a future that forces us to strap technology to our faces, putting up barriers between each other? Or will it be a future where technology seamlessly dissolves into the world around us? If you ask me, history has already given us a pretty clear answer.
Now let's be clear. This isn't just about hating new things or being some kind of anti-tech purist. No, this is about a fundamental clash, a conflict between this very specific piece of technology and, the very core of how we're wired as human beings.
So that's the real question we need to ask, isn't it? Is all this hesitation we're feeling just a temporary thing, kind of like how people were skeptical about the first smartphones? Or is it a massive warning sign that the entire industry is just, completely ignoring?
To figure that out, we have to put on a different kind of hat. We need to think like a cognitive architect, which is just a fancy way of saying someone who designs things for how our brains actually work, not how tech companies wish they would. And that means we have to stop asking, can we build it, and start asking the much, much more important question, should we?
And that leads us to the first, and honestly the biggest question of all. What problem out there is so bad, so urgent, that you or I would willingly agree to wear a computer on our face all day long? Seriously, what's the killer app that justifies that?
And even if there is a problem that needs solving, do we really need glasses to solve it? This question kind of challenges the whole premise. Maybe, just maybe, the entire idea of strapping hardware to our faces is the wrong way to go about it from the very start. Which really gets to the heart of it, right? Who is this technology for? Is it for real, actual people who value things like, looking someone in the eye when you talk to them? Or is it for some kind of idealized user who doesn't mind having a screen between them and the rest of the world?
And finally, we got to talk about the money. We're talking billions, with a B, being poured into AR glasses. So you have to wonder, what other amazing things are we not inventing because all that cash and brainpower is tied up in this one massive bet on a future that might not even happen?
Look, this skepticism, it isn't just coming out of nowhere. The tech world is practically littered with the corpses of the next big thing. Remember 3D TVs? The Segway? It feels like AR glasses are following a script that we've seen fail time and time again.
Case in point, Google Glass. It launched back in 2013 on this absolute tidal wave of hype. It was going to change everything. And then, by 2015, the consumer version was dead. Not because the tech was bad, but because of social rejection. People just found them creepy. Now here we are with Apple and Meta pushing their versions, and you just have to ask, has anything really changed?
This is such a great way to think about it. Push versus pull products. See, pull products like the iPhone or AirPods, they solve a real problem we have, so we actively pull them into our lives. But push products, They're basically cool tech looking for a problem to solve. Companies have to push them on us. And if you look at history, those push products, they almost never make it. And it reveals this classic, painful pattern, doesn't it? Some incredible new tech gets invented, the media goes wild calling it the future, billions of dollars get invested, and then regular people just kind of look at it and shrug. And AR glasses seem to be following this playbook to a T.
So let's talk a little more about that investment, because the numbers here are absolutely staggering. The financial pressure here isn't just for AR glasses to be a successful gadget. Oh no. For the math to work, they have to be a global phenomenon on the scale of the smartphone.
Just look at that number. Over $10 billion. And that's just a fraction of what Meta has sunk into its Reality Labs division. This isn't some little side project for them. This is an all-in, bet the company gamble that AR glasses will replace our phones.
And that's really the whole problem with the money side of things. Hey, being a niche product for, say, surgeons or factory workers, that's a great business, but it's not a $10 billion business. For these investments to pay off, we're talking about hundreds of millions, maybe billions of people buying them. And the argument here is that's just not going to happen.
So why not? Why won't we all just buy them? Well, the answer has almost nothing to do with the processors or the battery life. It's all about a deep, fundamental conflict with our own human nature.
I mean, just look at this. So much of how we connect with each other relies on these tiny, subtle things: direct eye contact, little facial expressions. AR glasses, just by existing, get in the way of all that. They create a literal and a psychological barrier between people. So this goes way, way beyond just feeling a little awkward. We're talking about violating some of our most basic human preferences. We like genuine connection. We like being physically comfortable. And in a world that's already so distracting, the last thing we want is more notifications beamed directly into our eyeballs. These aren't just bugs you can fix with a software update. They're fundamental human problems.
But, and this is a really crucial point, this does not mean AR technology is a failure. Not at all. It just means that its real successful future is probably going to look very, very different from the all-or-nothing vision these tech giants are betting the farm on.
So where will we see AR actually succeed? Well, it'll probably be situational for specific tasks, right? Like a surgeon in an operating room, or for an immersive game. It'll be built into our environment, or it'll be a cool feature on our phones, and it will be a super powerful tool for professionals. But an everyday, all-day device for everybody? That's the part that feels like a fantasy.
So look, if you feel that little bit of gut resistance to the idea of wearing a computer on your face, you're not a Luddite. You're not behind the times. That feeling you have, that's actually a really powerful market signal. At the end of the day, technology is supposed to adapt to us, not the other way around.
Because here's the bottom line. You can build the most technologically advanced gadget in the history of the world. But if it goes against our fundamental needs for things like comfort and real human connection, it's going to fail. In the long run, human nature always, always wins.
Which leaves us with one final multi-billion-dollar question to think about. Google learned this exact lesson, the hard way, more than a decade ago. How much more time, how much more money is going to be spent before the industry finally wakes up and realizes they might be building a future that most of us just don't want?